What is up, guys? We're back with another video, and today we're checking out this motherboard right here. This is the Gigabyte X870 AORUS Elite Wi-Fi 7. So let's go ahead and take a look. To start things out, this is an ATX motherboard, and Gigabyte is going with a black PCB with gray accents. And then you'll find that all of the heatsinks on the board are black as well, with gray accents throughout. As we started the CPU socket, we have AMD's AM5 socket. That means this board will support Ryzen 9000, 8000, and 7000 series processors. Surrounding the CPU socket, we have our power delivery components, and Gigabyte is making use of a 16+2+2 power phase design with 60 amp power stages. It's worth noting that these are designed in a parallel 8+8 design. The power delivery components are covered by two large heatsinks, which will keep your VRM temperatures in check. The VRM heatsinks connect to the rear I/O cover, which really brings the top section of the board together. This cover does have the AORUS logo on it. Hiding in the top corner of the board are two 8-pin EPS connectors. By default, you only need to have one plugged in, but for higher end processors and overclocking, you want to use both connectors for more stable power delivery. Moving across the top of the board, you'll find your optional CPU fan header, main CPU fan header, small power and reset buttons, a standard 4-pin RGB header, and a 3-pin addressable RGB header. Coming to the far edge of the board, you'll find your indication LEDs, a postcode display, 24-pin ATX power connection, an HDMI port, which is used for a sensor panel link, and a USB 3.2 Gen 2x2 header. When it comes to memory, we have 4 DDR5 DIMM slots, which will support up to 256 gigabytes of DDR5 memory with speeds of 8000 megahertz. Moving down the board, there are 4 SATA 6 gig ports as well as a USB 3.2 header. These connections are at a 90-degree angle, so they won't get in the way of your graphics card or other expansion cards. At the bottom of the board, you'll find the rest of your headers and connections. So from left to right, we have our front panel audio header, 2 3-pin addressable RGB headers, an ESPI DB header, TPM header, 3 4-pin fan headers, 2 USB 2.0 headers, 3 more 4-pin fan headers, and finally your front panel headers. Now, if you're keeping track, this board has actually 8 4-pin fan headers. Like most motherboards these days, the bottom half of this board is characterized by heatsinks. The design on these heatsinks feature the AORUS logo, but I feel it's a bit toned back from previous designs. The top heatsink is a bit beefier as it's meant to cool off a Gen 5 NVMe SSD. The M.2 heatsinks on the board are completely toolless as well. So to remove them, you just move these little latches and they easily go ahead and come off. Now, if you want to put them back on, it's just as easy. So you just line this up here and just press down. So I just press down and it locks right there into place. Same thing with this one. This one's a little bit different, but it's essentially the same. We just do that and it's locked right into place. With all of the heatsinks removed, we find 4 M.2 slots. The top and bottom 2 slots are powered by the CPU and are Gen 5 slots, while the second slot is powered by the chipset and is a Gen 4 slot. All 4 of the slots have a toolless system for your actual drive itself as well, and it's extremely easy. Just like the heatsinks, you put your drive in and all you have to do is just press down and it's going to go ahead and lock your drive into place. To remove the drive, you just press over here, press it, and it unlocks the drive. When it comes to expansion slots, we have 3 PCI Express X16 slots. The top slot is PCI Express 5.0 and is X16 electrical. The second slot is PCI Express 4.0 and is X4 electrical. And then finally, the bottom slot is PCI Express 3.0 and is X2 electrical. The top graphics card slot is metal reinforced, which is great to see. And if we flip the board over, we can see Gigabyte's ultra durable PCIe armor. The top graphics card slot does have a release button, which you can see right here. So when you press that in, it goes ahead and releases the slot. So you don't have to try to put your fingers down in there to get your graphics card out of your system. It is worth noting that if you have any M.2 drives installed in either of the bottom M.2 slots, the top X16 slot will only run at X8 speeds. When it comes to the rear I/O, of course, we have an integrated I/O shield. For our buttons and connections, we have a QFlash Plus button, Wi-Fi antenna connections, 4 USB 2.0 Type A ports, 4 USB 3.2 Gen 1 Type A ports, HDMI, 2 USB 4.0 Type C ports, 2 USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type A ports, 2.5 gig Ethernet, and then your audio connections. So in total, you have 12 USB ports on the rear I/O, and don't forget, you get even more via headers on the board. When it comes to the Wi-Fi antenna, Gigabyte has their Easy Plug, and this essentially makes plugging in the Wi-Fi antenna so easy. No more turning the little pins or anything like that. All we have to do is just take this and simply plug it in, and you're good to go. And it's easy enough to remove as well. You just pull it right out. As we come to the end here, I think this board has a great mix of features that most users are going to really like. The thing that really stands out to me is having 3 Gen 5 M.2 slots. So if you did want to go ahead and do a storage heavy build, you can definitely go ahead and do that. The only caveat is if you populate the 2 bottom slots, your graphics card slot is only going to run at X8 speeds. Some people may, take that sacrifice if they want, and that's a limitation of the platform. It's not a limitation of this board specifically, but I really like having the ability to have that much super fast storage if I'm somebody who's doing a storage heavy build. On top of that, you're getting USB 4 on the back with those 2 Type C ports, so super fast. External storage, you can do that way. You also get USB at 3.2 Gen 2x2 on the front header. So if you have a new case that has that Type C connector, you can take advantage of those speeds as well. All of the ease of use features on this, the toolless M.2 installation, the really easy Wi-Fi antenna connections as well. It just makes things so much easier when you are doing your build. Nobody wants to find those little screws that we had to do in the past. So I really like that as well. This has a great VRM, so whether you're running a mid-range AMD CPU to a high-end AMD CPU, you should be covered there, no problem at all. I think if anything, they kind of toned back the design on this. I remember when AORUS boards were just like all RGB and they were super flashy. This is just a little toned down for me, and that's just a me thing. But overall, I think that if you're looking at X870 and X870E, you're gonna be really happy with the mix of features that you do get on this board. And you buy this board instead of an X870E, and you'll be able to take that extra savings and maybe buy a better graphics card or higher end storage or maybe more memory or something like that. But overall, great mix of features. Now, I will go ahead and have links below where you can go ahead and pick this board up, as well as to our full written review over at ThinkComputers.org. Now, if you enjoyed this video, I would appreciate it if you hit the thumbs up, and we'll see you guys in the next video.